and a very warm welcome to the TV Key Facts Show 2022. Thanks for joining us from wherever you are across the world. It really is great to have you with us as we will be giving you unique insights into the 29th edition of this International Total Video Consumption Study. Let me first of all introduce myself. My name is Louise Eklund. I'm a journalist, and for the third year running, I have the absolute pleasure of accompanying the RTL Ad Alliance team for this event. Over the next hour, you'll have an overview on how the macro trends are deeply reshaping the industry and how to get the best from the coming years by considering new development perspectives. To do this, we have called on international experts, starting with media personalities such as the journalist Mary Abdelaziz Ditzo from NTV, the leading commercial news channel in Germany, and Jens Schröder from Geo magazine. Ian Whittaker, financial analyst, will also be with us to help us understand how the consumers adapt to this new reality. And we'll get the vision of one of the leading content production societies with Andreas Crosati from Fremantle. And of course, I will be with Jean-Baptiste Mojo from the RTL Ad Alliance team. He's the man that makes the data and the figures speak to you. He'll be giving you the keys to the future of content and advertising. This show is just the starter to get the complete TV Key Fact input. You can dive into the magazine and the full study, which is also going on to the TV Key Facts platform. Now let's launch this 2022 edition. And to do this, I'd like to welcome Stéphane Corouble, CEO of RTL Ad Alliance. Here we go. So, Stéphane, thanks very much for joining me here on the set. How are you, first of all?
Very well, Louise. Thank you very much for hosting me today.
Well, great to have you with us. So, Stéphane, the title of this event is Entering a New Era. Maybe, first of all, you can maybe explain to us why you actually chose this title.
Indeed, entering a new era. It's quite a bold statement, don't you think, Louise?
It is, yes.
So, and especially for a TV Key Fact presentation, because usually we used to go and look at the back data, the historical data, to talk about the future. But today and this year, it was important for me to be really looking forward than looking backwards. And we want to invite you, all of you behind your screens today, to change your perspective and zoom out a little bit. Because we are entering the new era, especially this total video industry is really entering a new era because the digital transformation is not a myth anymore. No. We are really into it. Everything is about streaming. Everything is about video. And in the presentation of today and the show and the book that you will receive anytime soon, we will be analyzing mega trends on the industry and try to give you the keys to navigate into this new era. We are seeing many opportunities, to be honest, even in this period of uncertainty, in order to be creative, to be innovative, to bring sustainable solutions for the media industry. So I really feel that this period of crisis, as a matter of fact, is playing like an accelerator to bring us into embrace the new era, this new era that we are entering now.
Okay, so to be concrete, I mean, I think people are sort of asking themselves this question, how am I going to be able to navigate through this period?
This question of navigating this new era is really at the center of today's shows and at the center of the book. So we will shed some light today and help you to find a way successfully into the discovering the unknown, I would say, thanks to our long-standing expertise in total video, but also thanks to the insights that the experts will bring to the table today.
So listening to you, Stéphane, I feel like your outlook is rather a positive one.
Yeah, well, we've known each other for some years now, Louise, and I am optimistic, pretty optimistic guy. And on top of being optimistic for the TV Key Fact, I'm also optimistic for something a little bit more personal. We are also entering a new era for RTL Ad Alliance. You know, RTL Ad Alliance was formed by combining three very different but very complementary companies, RTL Ad Connect, SmartClip, and IMS, in order to form the international total video advertising sales house of RTL Group, but also many other publishers in Europe. And the promise is we want to become the European champion for advertising and technology sales. And in the coming month, we will be paying a lot of attention in bringing added value to both sides of the value chain. On one side, the media partners and the tech partners, and on the other side, bringing efficiency, simplification, trust to the advertising industry.
And how does that sort of translate today here visually, I mean, on the set, and also with this absolutely fabulous book here that we have?
Well, as you said, it's a fantastic set, I must say, here in Paris at the M6 premises.
Yeah.
So entering a new era is like traveling into space, and this is exactly what we see here, into the unknown. And while traveling into the unknown, as I said earlier, it's really important to challenge perspectives. Yeah. You know, at RTL Ad Alliance, for example, we have the global view on different markets, we can anticipate new trends, etc. But on the other side, we also have the capacity to really zoom in like a microscope at local level in order to make sure our campaigns are efficient, or we are bringing very high level of services at very local level. It's the same, as a matter of fact, for the TV Key Facts. We will have experts today, but also in the book, that will share their insights, share their global analysis share a global view of the total video market and their vision. But at the same time, we will provide very granular data on the consumption, audience, content from a local perspective. And I think this constant change of perspective will allow us to navigate, as a matter of fact, the outer space, to navigate and to anticipate the future. This is what the TV Key Fact is all about.
Great. So we're going to dive into detail in just a few minutes with some amazing experts that are going to be with us today. Thank you very much, Stéphane. We'll come to you a little bit later on in the show. It's time to have a closer look at this new era you're entering now and how to adapt to it successfully. For this, please welcome Jean-Baptiste Modio, Marketing Director at RTL Ad Alliance. Here we go. Jean-Baptiste, really great to see you. How are you doing, first of all?
Hey, I'm very well, Louise. It's a pleasure to be here with you again this year.
Great to see you again. So we've been through some difficult times, turbulent times since 2020. And 2022 is really no exception. I think we can all agree on that. So we're talking about a new era for this edition, but what is different? What has changed?
You know, a new era is generally defined as a time that is full of progress, full of promises, but also a lot of risk. Yeah. That is due to all the novelty that's around us. For us, nowadays, it's basically means that we are like in a permanent crisis, sanitary crisis, economical crisis, political crisis, and so we are like firemen, crisis everywhere. But on the other hand, we can't avoid the fact that we need to prepare for a sustainable future.
Okay, and how can we reconcile these two perspectives then?
Well, maybe despite the urge, we need to take the time to think about the future first. We need to zoom out to understand the long-term trends and then to work on the immediate response we will bring to the crisis, but immediate response that will still be meaningful in the long-term perspective.
Okay, and that's what you're going to be presenting today?
Yes, we will take the time to get an insightful overview of the current context, and then we'll zoom in a little closer to see the impact, on the video consumption, on the advertising efficiency, and on the content strategy from the broadcasters. And finally, we will present concrete solutions that respond to these short-term issues, but that ultimately offer a new potential for the future.
Okay, so let's now understand what we're facing with our first guests. So our first guests are at the heart of the economic, political and environmental news on a daily basis and will help us decode the three key trends impacting our society and industry. Please welcome Mary Abdelaziz Ditso from NTV and Jens Stroeder from Geo Magazine. Thank you very much to both of you for being with us today. You're coming to us live from Cologne. So first of all, let's start with the first trend that you have identified. It's the end of free money. So the end of free money, and I'm going to turn to you, Mary, first of all. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, to understand what we mean with the end of free money, I think we need to go back for 1 minute in time. You know, because of the corona, central banks in Europe, also in the USA and in other parts in the world, like Japan, for example, they started to change their strategy during the corona time. What I mean with that is they put a lot of money into the market just to stabilize our economy. And in the end, we need to realize that the amount of money in total increased a lot the last years. So we ask ourselves, what do people do with a lot of money? Of course, they spend it. So this is what we saw the last 2 years. We saw many new traders into the stock market, for example, especially a big tech hype. So let me say, if you follow the Nasdaq, for example, at the Wall Street, you definitely won a lot of money during the last 2 years. You can see it here on the chart. So we have the young new traders to put their money into the market. And we have also many fintechs like Trade Republic, Scalable Capital, who also rise in a really tough way, you know, because the investors who also got a lot of money, they give it to the fintechs. And in total, we saw that this kind of strategy of the central banks to push the economy with that, to stabilize it and to protect it, has this kind of effect. So good so far. The problem is then we saw the, let's say, kind of changing point. What I mean with that is the high inflation rate. We have it until now, you know, 10%. I mean, it's incredible high. And you see it here also on this chart. So what the central banks were doing, like the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve with Jerome Powell, they raised the interest rates again and again and again. You can watch it in the news until now, nearly every week or every month. They need to do it to stabilize it in the other kind of direction. And this is what we actually call the end of free money.
Okay, and so how do you explain this economic austerity, Mary?
I would explain it like, I think many people, many experts are kind of afraid of a global recession. We can't see it until now. You know, the newest data is really positive, much more positive than everybody thought. But in the end, I think it could come next year, and some people are afraid of it. What I mean is we see less unicorns in the market. We see how investors think double twice before they are investing in startups. And also private people think double twice if they buy a product or not. So I think this is the reason why some people are kind of nervous.
Okay, and if we move forward into the future, how do you see the evolution of this situation?
I think to come back to a normal inflation rate, and this is what everybody wants, it will take, let's say, 1 or 2 years. I mean, we are now on 10%. The good message is that now with the new data, we saw that maybe we already reached the inflation peak in the Eurozone, but also in Germany, we got these new information. But let's face it, it's 10%, so it's still a lot, and we need to bring it back to a normal level. And to reach this, I think, everybody will stand through these kind of tough times, definitely. But in the end, I think, and let me say this one last thing, it's a really like a wake-up call for Europe. You know, in the end, we know that we need to stand more together. We need to be more independent, especially our economy, because other countries in the world are doing the same, like China, USA. They start really tough strategies to protect their economy, and we need to do the same. So I think it's maybe all what happened is like a wake-up call for Europe.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Maria. So we've all heard the expression taken from the government figures across the globe, the end of abundance. This is our second trend. Jens, I'm coming to you now. For you, it's not a particularly new trend, is it? More a change of perception, is what you said to me. Can you explain?
Yes, well, it's funny that many people talk about the end of abundance, but when you look at it closely, there really hasn't ever been real, true abundance. There's always been scarcity issues that we have chosen to ignore, maybe. We could have actually thought about it earlier. Like in the 70s, there was the report to the Club of Rome, and since then, at least, it was clear that we live on one planet. There's some natural limits, some planetary boundaries to actually how much we can consume, but we chose to feel like we're living in a world of abundance. But that perception is now radically changing, vehemently changing. We actually see, due to the crisis, we see and we feel even for the first time the real scarcity of energy. Energy has always been scarce, but we didn't feel it in the way that we do now. Everybody's scrambling for energy. Also, the natural ecosystems, healthy natural ecosystems, are a scarce resource, and we feel that now much more clear than we've ever done. And also some other kinds of scarcities, like the scarcity of talent. We feel that in Western Europe too. And now the new era that we're entering is not an era that suddenly has scarcity, which never has been there. It's suddenly a new light in which we see that scarcity, and maybe also a chance to accept the challenge of scarcity.
Okay, so it's very clear. And how do you think this new perception is going to change company strategies, Jens?
Well, in economic terms, scarcity is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually, in markets, it's a vital signal that there's something scarce, that something is not enough, and that we have to do something about it. So it's a good thing to have that signal. It's dangerous to ignore it, but when you see it and when you accept it, it's actually a good thing, because the more people see it and accept it, the more attractive it gets for companies to find solutions, because the demand for solutions, for real solutions, is just growing.
And what about the consumers today? How is their behavior changing, Jens?
If you look at the trends, the consumers are realizing this more and more. And it's also maybe also thanks to younger generations' initiatives like Fridays for Future. I mean, old people like me start to listen to their children, listen to their grandchildren, and that means consumers of all ages would start to factor this in their decisions in life. For example, also in their consumption decisions. It doesn't necessarily mean that they consume less, but they will think more about it. They'll think about the options they have, and then think about the impact that has. And the issues at stake are very complex sometimes. So people will be more than ever in need of like trustworthy brands, people like journalists. I mean, this is interesting for my trade as well, like journalists who translate the complex issues of scarcity and of natural rehabilitation for them. And it's our job in the current time actually to do that translation service, if you will, and try to tell the consumer, okay, this is your framework. In this framework, you can make your decisions of consumption, and we help you to do that.
Okay, Jens, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on this subject in the second part of our presentation, of course. As a consumer, I have to say what really struck me with the war in Ukraine and everything is, as a consumer, I lacked certain products, should I say, on a day-to-day basis. That's because we are interdependent, if I understand correctly. For you, is this interdependence an asset or a problem?
Interdependence is not bad as such. I mean, the global trade has also made it possible that things are produced where they are easiest and best and cheapest to produce. That's actually a good thing, because it's an efficiency accelerator. On the other hand, in some areas, interdependence has become dependence, unilateral dependence. Like for example, Germany has been unilaterally dependent on Russian gas. We have to try and find a new way, restart the system in a way to use the good things of interdependence, a balanced and fair interdependence, and not let it go into dependence where one side is stronger than the other. So maybe this also is a new chance to actually make us think about that challenge and restart the system and use the good things that it has and try to avoid the bad things.
Well, we have a great overview. Thanks very much, Jens. And we'll explore today the opportunities that come with this or these new trends. Another trend that I would like to get your input on now is the metaverse. So a virtual society existing in parallel with our physical life. Is it a fantasy or is it a whim? A real game changer, Mary? Is that the question, maybe?
Maybe it's the question, and if I should answer it, I would say from now it could be a real game changer, you know, but at the moment I think it's more a vision than a trend, because I mean, yes, it's a really high potential in the market. I brought you some numbers here. I bring it to the show. Like the market potential is immense. The metaverse business is expected to reach $800 billion by 2024. So yes, we have a it could be a big thing. But on the other hand, we definitely need to say or to speak about the risks. You know, to create a real metaverse, like Meta want to do it or wants to have it, you definitely need time. It's the first thing of all. And experts say maybe it will take more than 20 years. So this is the first thing, it needs time. The second thing is that you definitely need a huge computing power to realize it. I mean, what should it be? Imagine, it's like a new world, like a new digital world built up by some digital companies, and they want that you and everybody, and me and everybody, goes to these digital places to work there, to live there, to meet friends, to go to concerts, to do everything over there. So you need this, let's say, huge computing power to realize it. And the third thing is that you definitely need the technique, the VR glasses. So you see, there are some risks we need to speak about. Some people say it's more like a bubble. Some other people say it's more like a trend and the future. We don't know it yet.
Okay, so Jean-Baptiste has been listening to you attentively, Mary. Mary has presented the risks to us, but we're seeing like a real acceleration here in brand activity, aren't we?
Yeah, there's really a lot of things happening in the marketing field. There's a company called Airgift that registered like more than 320 brand activities in the last 6 months in the metaverse. And every major brand is trying it, from McDonald's to John Lewis in Fortnite, for example, or the car company Cupra gave it a try, you know?
Okay, so Mary, you told us about the risks. Jean-Baptiste, you told us about, the different examples. You gave us some examples here. It seems to me like there's believers and non-believers kind of thing. How do you explain that, Mary?
We need to realize that it's not so easy for companies to figure out how to place their products. They need knowledge for that, and they need a lot of money for that. So, but except from this, I'm totally with you. It could be a big chance also for the economy. But I think maybe because of the differences, maybe it's a culture thing as well, you know? I mean, in the USA, the people are, let's say, more kind or more able to take some risks, more creative, more like, hey, let's create a new startup, a new product and things like that. They are more open, I think, in a way. And maybe the European countries, especially also the German managers, are more like calm, relaxed. Let's wait, let's have a look at it before we try to invest and place our products.
Yeah, in the short-term perspective, for me, metaverse marketing is an amazing tool for one big reason. It's to reach the gaming audience, because it's an audience that's both growing in numbers and in purchasing power. And that's an audience that's very, very hard to reach with the more traditional media. So it's a great addition, I would say, to a brand toolkit. They have to figure out how to use it now.
Great. So that was for the Zoom Out, shall we say. Thank you to you both, Mary and Jens. Thanks for this great expertise. We'll be coming back to you, of course, at the end of the show. Now, Jean-Baptiste, let's zoom in on the total video consumption world. Here we go. I'm going to jump straight in. What are the main trends that you have identified?
Well, if we set aside 2020, that was a very unique year due to COVID, we might see a great decline in the linear television viewing worldwide between 2019 and 2021. Yes. Overall, it's minus 11 minutes. However, these global viewing figures of 2 hours and 36 minutes per day that we see, it covers 3 different realities. A reality in North America, where the decline is great. It's minus 35 minutes, 2019 to 2021. And they lose the throne as the #1 region for TV viewing. In Asia, also there's a decline of 13 minutes year on year, but the consumption was already very low. And there's a third reality here in Europe, because we become the new epicenter of linear television viewing. We even grow by 1 minute.
Okay, and does differentiation also come within regions?
Yeah, especially within regions where countries have great cultural differences from one another. You see, in Europe, we have countries with lower television viewing habits, like the Netherlands or Denmark, that only watch 2 hours and a half of television per day, and it declines. And you have some other countries with very strong television viewing habits. I'm thinking Hungary or Italy, where they watch 4 up to 5 hours of television every day, and here it's growing.
Okay, that's very clear, but what does that actually mean for advertisers then?
Well, without a doubt, it means that they have to adapt their media planning. It's vital for them. And the brands, they need to work with the right partners that can first provide the relevant data about each market they are in, and second, provide the relevant expertise and the meaningful analysis to give the good recommendations.
Okay, so that's for the television side. Let's talk about total video now.
Yeah, total video, it's clearly growing. The time we spend with total video, it increased by 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the country, between 2019 and 2021. And it reached totals that are huge, around 4 hours and a half in Europe, up to 6 hours nearly in the US. So it's the highest level of total video viewing in 10 years, if we exclude 2020, of course. And this growth of total video viewing comes mostly from the long-form video on demand.
Okay, and so how can advertisers get their share of the VOD pie?
Yeah, until now it was pretty difficult, because the video on demand market was highly dominated by the paid option, the subscription VOD, Netflix, Disney+, etc. But 2022 marks a turning point for 2 reasons.
Okay.
First, because there's an emergence of what we call ad-supported services, AVOD or FAST. I'm talking about platforms like Pluto TV, Rakuten TV, or Samsung TV+. And these platforms, they will gain ground in the future. And second, because the SVOD players, they are also opening up to advertising. Netflix, Disney+, in November 2022, they started launching ad-supported options with a lower price. There's an analysis from Omdia who says that in 2023, 14% of the SVOD subscribers will see ads.
Okay, so that's pretty good news then. It's time to zoom in closer to the TV Key Fact study to give you a glimpse of what advertising in this new era could be. So for this second part, we'll be surrounded by experts in their field to decode the practical challenges that emerge and also give you concrete solutions to apply. And first, I'm happy to welcome on stage with me today, Ian Whittaker. You are, hello, how are you?
I'm fine, Louise. How are you?
I was raring to say hello there, I felt it. Great to see you here today with us. You are a financial analyst from Great Britain. You are a multi-award winning person. I don't know if we can say that in English, but you know what I mean.
I know.
Yes, for your on-point analysis of media and advertising. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It's great. Let's now talk about advertising in a limited economy. The end of free money and good scarcity is putting pressure on the advertising industry. We can all feel it. What's your take, first of all, on the advertising market and from a global point of view?
From a global standpoint, actually things look surprisingly buoyant at the moment. So there are obviously pressures in terms of if you look at individual markets and regions and if you look at individual platforms. I think it's important to sort of step back and look at what advertisers are doing. And if you look, for example, at what's the latest set of quarterly results that have come out from companies, sort of, yes, there are cases where there is some softness in terms of their sales, but many companies actually turning around and saying, our top line actually grew more than expected. This is translating into bottom line profits as well, a growth coming through. And what was quite interesting was the number of companies who turned around and said, yes, we are preparing for a recession, but we're not seeing it yet in terms of what the consumer is doing. And I think there was always a risk here that you can almost, as it were, talk yourself into a recession. It becomes something of a self-fulfilling sort of prophecy with that. But if you actually look at in terms of what advertisers are thinking right now, they are pushing through prices through to consumers. Consumers are still spending on here. Everyone obviously is thinking about the general environment and what's happening with their costs and so forth. But for the moment, things look relatively buoyant.
OK, so in light of what you've just said, that was quite positive, so that feels good to everybody watching us, I think. What would be your advice to advertisers watching us today?
Well, I think there is always a temptation when you hear the word recession to stop spending, stop investing. And I'd say don't. What you want to do is you want to invest. Okay. That would be the overall message. Advertising, when you look at it, is intangible CapEx. Just as a firm actually spends on physical plant to grow its sales over the longer term, it's the same particularly when it comes to its brand. It's got the same sort of purpose as well. On a practical standpoint, the number of times that companies mentioned in conference calls about their brand helping to support price increases and push those through. And this also as well potentially has a permanent uplift in terms of margins because prices tend to be sticky.
Yeah.
If prices go up to a higher level, they tend to stay there. But many of the input costs, particularly around commodity costs, will come down over time. And that potentially leaves open the room for margin expansion.
Okay. If we take a look at the consumers now, like myself, what are my buying habits? What am I doing at the moment?
Well, it's very interesting. I'd really sort of say there are two trends here that would really sort of look down on. One is in terms of the polarization of consumers. If you see what's happened there's a real difference there between consumers at the higher end of the income scale, who actually from the pandemic, you would argue have done well. There's been increases in asset values, whether that be property prices, whether that be in terms of pension pots and so forth. They are generally sort of at the benefiting from higher wage inflation, which is coming through. They tend to not suffer so much from high inflation rates because they spend less of their income on food and energy, etc. So from that standpoint, those consumers are still very much spending. And you can see it in areas at one extreme, luxury goods, in terms of that, but you can also see it as well in terms of areas like travel. Yeah, and if you look, for example, particularly younger people, sort of Gen Z and millennials and so forth, the message that has been coming through, if, for example, you look at sort of the financial industry, they've been saying our strongest spenders are really the younger generation. And I think that leads on to point two in terms of here. If you actually look at what has happened with the pandemic and what people lost during that time, it wasn't money. They didn't lose their jobs, government support schemes that were going on and so forth. What they lost was time. And really what there feels to be now is really a desire to actually go out, enjoy lives, and therefore spend to do so. I think with poorer consumers, obviously they're under a lot more pressure in terms of that. One factor I would say, just to bring into perspective as well, and particularly in Europe, don't underestimate the potential level of government support for poorer consumers. And that may provide some sort of a safety net in terms of their spending.
Okay, so you've been listening to everything that Ian's saying very attentively. He's watching you and he's into it. Jean-Baptiste, is what Ian's saying reflected in your daily business?
Well, I'm extremely glad to hear Ian Whittaker, his very optimistic point of view and the fact that advertisers need to spend, that consumers will continue to consume.
Yeah.
In our daily conversations, with advertiser and agency, we also see clear signs of pressures on advertising budget. The advertiser, we feel that they have the need to make every euro they spend in advertising count. They need to make their advertising budget efficient, and for this, they need the right measurement tool.
Okay.
And which KPIs they need to measure? I will steal this from Ian because he said it very well in a recent article he wrote with Andy Brown.
Andy Brown, indeed.
Yeah, CEO of the Attention Council. He went up with this great formula of the 3 A's that you have to measure, which is audience, attention, and attribution.
Okay, the 3 A's.
Yes.
Would you like to comment?
Indeed. Well, thanks very much for referencing the article. It's now I've been put on the spot here with this. It's absolutely true. I mean, what advertisers, particularly agencies, people who are working in marketing departments, have to do is really sort of align what they are doing, what advertising is doing, with really the priorities of the companies. So they need to speak the language of the board and the CFOs and the CEOs in saying why advertising remains such a good investment. And as you pointed out in terms of the 3 A's, in terms of there, you need to prove in terms of you have the audience that get there, and you have to give solid results as to say, this is what advertising delivers. So from a practical standpoint, I think when it comes to advertisers, people who are working in marketing, really, if you want to help support advertising spend moving forwards, tie in what you do and show how it works for your boards so that they can actually go back and say, this is the reason why we need to invest moving forwards.
Okay. Well, Ian, thanks so much. We don't have too much time, but it was absolutely amazing to have you with us here today. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Louise.
Jean-Baptiste, I'm going to come back to you with the 3 A's now. It kind of seems really obvious when we talk about audience here and media buying, right? This is an evidence kind of thing.
Yeah, audience is something we've always been measuring in media buying, but there's a novelty with audience measurement, especially for video, is the fact that we have to measure different video types under the same roof. And we need to measure different video types, but especially the duplication between these different video types, because we need to reduce the overlaps of the different media. We need to reduce it to the minimum as a factor of media efficiency. And there's an example in the UK with a measurement called C-Flight that is measuring the deduplication and the incremental that is brought by broadcast VOD on top of television.
Okay, and what could be a good common denominator to compare different media types, Jean-Baptiste?
Well, attention at the moment is considered a great standard by the media industry to compare the different ad formats because it has a direct impact on sales at the end of the day. And we now have in the market multiple vendors who are measuring attention, companies like Amplified Intelligence, Lumen, or TVision. And what they do, they measure attention and they cross these attention metrics with Ubiquiti's data on the cost of media. And that's how, and that's we see in the graph behind me, they compare the price of 1 second of attention on different media platforms and different ad format. And as you can see, this benchmark is very much in favor of video format because they are able to attract more attention despite the fact that their price per contact might be a bit higher.
Okay, and can we go even further and measure the final impact of a campaign on the consumers?
Yes, you can measure the impact, but for a good result, you need to have the full picture. The full picture is first to measure the success of the overall media strategy, meaning how you distribute the budget across different media channels. And this can be tracked with what we call media mix modeling to give you a global return on investment. But you also have to measure the success of your media planning, meaning how you execute your campaign. And this can be achieved with tools that we call last contact attribution tools. So it's only optimization of media strategy, media planning, both steps that can guarantee the best media efficiency.
Okay, and what about ad formats? Will creative ad solutions sort of enhance this efficiency as well?
Yes, clearly there are actually a lot of innovative tricks, I would say, to trigger actions thanks to technology. You know, digital innovation is a good way to make the ads more vibrant, more interactive, and get a stronger call to action. I think we're seeing a great example from M6 and Camif. They created an immersive augmented reality experience with a feature that's called SigScan, where you scan a QR code on their TV screen during the ad, and then you can place a piece of furniture into your living room. And this kind of ad, we measure result, it multiplies attention by 2, it multiplies memorization by 3, and it multiplies engagement rates by 5. So it's really a great success.
And that's what we're looking for here, innovative and creative ad formats, the ones that make us absolutely love ads. And of course, I have an example for you. Here we go, let's take a look.
Hi, Gwen, right? Benji, I live just...
Benji, of course, from...
Yes. Hi. Bit of a weird one, but you haven't been getting any of my parcels, have you?
I love, can't say I have.
It's just I've ordered quite a few things online recently, and with our addresses being so difficult to find, I can see why it might get...
I'll let you know if anything arrives.
Superb. And there's one more reason to love this advert, isn't there?
Yes, this advert is an example of a win-win partnership between a sales house and an advertiser. It's what we call an equity deal. So the UK sales house, ITV, they invested £2 million worth of advertising space in a company called What3Words in exchange of shares of this company. And then they helped them come to TV with this great spot.
Okay, so a real business opportunity, of course, on both sides. We have creativity, we have measurement. Is that all?
No, actually, there's also a fourth A of marketing effectiveness, which is automation.
Okay, so let's hear what Camille Cronin from NBCU has to say on how the leading USA broadcaster managed this transition from TV to total video.
In industry context, is really consumption continues to grow globally, and it's really driven by increased content offerings and investments in digital and streaming options, as we've seen the proliferation over the last several years. And if you look at the US alone, 50% of video is consumed via streaming, and we're seeing that on our own business and NBCU. And what's more compelling about the industry and leading to our strategy is that number is expected to grow to over 70% in just the next 3 to 5 years. And so as we see the majority of streaming video kind of proliferate and also be ad supported, it's created a lot of complexity for the buying marketplace, and it creates challenges because you've got the linear options, you've got the digital options, you've got this new platform of streaming which has rapid adoption, but it makes it increasingly more complex to buy and really hyper fragmented. And even if you look at our own business, NBCU alone distributes content on over 300 endpoints in the US. And that's really what led us to create one platform, the value proposition, and a technology-driven solution to really meet the today's needs for marketers. In today's day and age, consumers are looking for high quality environments to consume their content, but not intrusively. And so it's really, we've been focusing on the best consumer experience for our viewer as well as our advertiser, because we want the ads to be able to perform. So we've really doubled down on ad innovation to ensure we're delivering the right message in the right context on the right platform to the audiences that marketers are looking for. Kind of depending on how a client wants to buy, we are automating the steps along that buying, planning, measurement, delivery journey through leveraging technology. Push of the industry has been very welcome in terms of challenging legacy-based measurement approaches. There's a bit of relief in the marketplace that NBCU is kind of taking the bull by the horns, if so to speak, on modernizing TV and modernizing the way that clients need their media to deliver for them. We've had accelerated client adoption on that end, and also agencies leaning in at the same time. But it's really, our advertisers have adopted our approach to precision and scale trading on every screen.
Well, thanks very much to Camille Cronin. This is just the perfect transition to our second challenge. So reaching consumers at scale in a changing media world. Jean-Baptiste, in these challenging times, is reach still a priority for marketers?
Yes, achieving the highest reach is the most important KPI in a good media plan. It's actually quoted as the main effectiveness driver by 41% of marketers questioned by Comcast in 2022.
But unlike in the United States, we have seen that linear television remains extremely strong in Europe, right?
Yes. In Europe, linear television reaches 70%, nearly 70% of the total continent population, and even more for some countries. But this big overall number should not hide another reality. Some target groups are really complicated to reach with television. Samsung tracked the usage on their connected TV sets, and in France, they discovered that 44% of the French population was hard to reach with linear television, either because they watch very little linear television, there's 27% of them that watch less than 5 hours per month, or because they watch exclusively video on demand.
Okay, so how do you go about reaching them?
Well, fortunately, these light TV viewers, as we call them, they are, on the other end, very heavy video on demand consumers. Mm-hmm. There's a research from Thinkbox in the UK that reported that the 50% of the British people that watch less television, they account for 60% of the total broadcast VOD viewing.
Okay, so I understand that SVOD viewers are not the same as TV viewers. They sort of complement each other. How do you go about identifying exactly these viewers that are not reached by the linear television?
Well, we have two solutions here. The first solution is with data. The connected TVs, they are tracking the TV usage, and they can identify either viewers that did not see the ad of a certain campaign or viewers that watch very little linear TV, and then create segments with these viewers and target them. So that's the first approach.
Okay.
The second option is to select the right content on the video on demand platform. And the research from Thinkbox here showed that you can very effectively reach certain targets with certain types of content. I'll give you example. The young adults can be reached very well with broadcast VOD with action, adventure, or sports content. The upscale target group, they can be reached very effectively with lifestyle, family, or fiction. And finally, the families, they can be reached with cartoons, cooking, or health program. So the reach can be a result of the broadcasters putting the right content on the right platform to meet the different audiences.
Okay, and our next guest understands this new strategic content approach very well, as he's part of one of the leading production companies in Europe. And I think that the best way to introduce him is by actually taking a look at the iconic content of his company. Here we go.
It's a yes for me.
Thank you, sir.
If you cannot keep up, you're gone.
I had some fun here today.
It opened the door to Hollywood for black comics.
Inspiring content there from Fremantle, the creators of Got Talent, Pop Idol, X Factor, Masked Singer, and more recently, movies like Bones and All. And we had the privilege of meeting Andreas Crosati, a Group COO Fremantle and CEO Continental Europe a few days ago. We managed to catch him between two meetings for a quick Zoom call. This is an exclusive interview just for you.
So in a way, you on one side you have fragmentation, but on the other side, I think you have much more content consumed and actually enjoyed by audience, and that actually is an incredible opportunity. A content company today like Fremantle needs to be a portfolio company, needs to be operating across all the spectrum of genres. And this for several reasons. I would start with one fundamental reason, that is talent. Talent is at the core of everything we do. And today, talent, real talent, wants to express herself or himself across multiple type of genres. So look, the first very good example is directors that were doing TV dramas. They also want to do movies, and we want to be the place they can do that without needing to change their production partner because we don't do movies. No. Global formats are not only alive but are really, really strong. Look, actually, in the last years, there have been a few big new formats that have been incredibly successful. One of these Fremantle produces in a lot of territories around the world, and it's The Masked Singer. So that's a very good example. That's a format coming from South Korea that has become a really global TV event. I think the reason why these formats are not only alive but very strong and will continue to be strong is, in a world where there's a lot of individual viewing, these formats bring together viewing. And while before this was limited to linear TV, and so actually what will happen, you'll see more and more of those formats actually go on those platforms, because ultimately those platforms need that kind of collective viewing experience for several reasons, including actually serving their new advertising partners now that they have entered that area. Look, let me say, however, one thing. It's really important for me to say that we do not tackle these issues because we believe it is mandatory to do it, okay? we cover these issues because we tell the story of society. We tell the story of the society where we operate, and the story of society where we operate naturally include these issues. I mean, diversity is the recognition of the fact that we live in diverse societies, and actually it should be a natural component of anybody producing content. And I actually very, very happy that in Fremantle we actually approach it in this way. Next big hit will be what the next show where the audience will feel an emotional connection.
Thank you very much to Andrea. It was really great to hear from you. You can find, obviously, the entire interview and exclusive content on the TV Keyfacts platform, which is tvkeyfacts.com. As a bonus today, let's take a look at Fremantle's amazing fiction content in this very short clip.
Sometimes you gotta do things that aren't in the book.
Blake, qu'est-ce que tu fais?
You don't think I'm a bad person.
Splendid idea.
So these are obviously really great stories. Jean-Baptiste, linear television is also good at creating emotional connection. What are the Reach champions, should I say?
Well, in 2021, it was the year where we experienced the return of bigger live events on television, you know. For example, the Eurovision Song Contest was back, and it benefited from this comeback after 1 year of absence. It was part of the top 10 programs in 14 different countries. So the first great example. Second great example, live event as well, is the comeback of sport events. In 2021, we had the Tokyo Olympics, we had the Football Euro Cup, and if you take the example of the football, the games, they reach an average audience of 56% in the participating countries. So great success of sports. TV is also able to report in real time on very important events. You know, we are in a multi-crisis situation, we said it, and the situation comforted the media as being the place where we consume preferred information. It's very trusted for information. And if you look at the 500 most viewed programs, 46% of them are news around Europe.
Okay, so events, whether it be sporting events or musical events, linear television is the ideal media for true federating experiences, live content to be shared in real time. What about VOD?
Well, Andreas Crosati, he told us that in the future, more entertainment will come to video on demand as well. But for now, I would say these platforms are very dominated by one genre, which is fiction or drama. And it is the most viewed genre on our VOD platforms from the RTL Group in 2021, in Spain, in Italy, in the UK, in Germany, so nearly everywhere. And as a result, more and more exclusive fiction programs are being developed for video on demand. I'll give you a very good example about Germany. There will be, the next event is an action comedy series featuring an acclaimed local hero. And I suggest we watch it together, Louise.
Okay, let's take a look. Here we go.
Ich hab die Schnauze voll von diesen Fake-Versionen von David Hasselhoff. Ich bin 70 Jahre alt. Besorgt mir etwas, das meine Zeit wert ist.
Es gab ein ungewöhnliches Angebot.
Schön.
Östlich von Berlin. In einer Art Off-Theater.
Das ist ein Albtraum. Hier ist etwas Größeres am Werk.
Wir wollen Sie für eine wichtige Mission rekrutieren.
Magie.
Du wurdest von einem Netzwerk aus VIP-Superspionen angeworfen?
Sie wieder in dem Auto, das ist super. Da haben Sie recht.
The Network. Ab dem 1. November streamen auf RTL+.
So really exciting. I can't wait to see it. This leads us now into our next challenge, new expectations towards brands. So what stories should brands be telling to their consumers to meet their expectations today?
Yeah, even if the growing complementarity between television and video is a clear opportunity for advertisers, it's still necessary for them to have the right message for the consumers. So we asked Lise Brunet, she's a sociologist and a market research specialist from IFOP, what advertising should convey to consumer.
Here we go.
Traditionally, brands are expected to guarantee and secure quality. You expect from brands to give you safe products and reliable products. Moreover, we know that brands are also strong identity markers. They say a lot about ourselves and the social groups in which we belong. They support us in expressing our personalities. So people expect from brands to be to mirror their individualities, and this is through their values.
Okay, so as I understand, brands are for some consumers like a sort of mirror that reflects the concern of the moment. But in these challenging times, what does this reflection actually look like?
Yeah, the consumers, they have economical, ecological, and social concerns. For them, it's a real crisis of meaning. And these tensions, they are reflected in a rise of criticism, towards brand that is amplified in the social networks, in the social media. Because the brands there, they can be pointed out publicly by the consumer. So how do they deal with it?
Well, let's hear from Lise Brunet.
I think the main challenge for brands today is to support consumers in their transition towards new lifestyle. Brands can use advertising and brand marketing to convey these new values, to start a conversation with the consumer and to explain them their new values and the changes taken and the new actions they are doing. This is a way to redefine their brand identity and to showcase what they and their products are standing for.
So thank you very much to Lise Brunet for your participation. But again, Jean-Baptiste, will this create value for brands?
Yeah, this will create monetary value for brands to position themselves as more purposeful and promoting their positive action. There's a yearly survey that is done by the media agency Havas about purposeful brands, and it demonstrated that the brand values are a driver for supporting higher prices and improving the brand preference against competitors. And these figures, they grow over time.
Okay, so this is really challenging because obviously there's a lot of topics and we know that attention to ads in the media is really quite limited, isn't it?
Yes, but there is a shortcut.
Share your tips.
Well, the media and the advertiser, they have more or less the same messages to share. Remember what Andreas Crosati told us about purpose? We can make a common statement between media and brands. So create a common storytelling without multiplying the ad spot. And across Europe, multiple media companies, they are supporting good causes and driving change. Mm-hmm. In France, for example, M6 is supporting the agricultural transition through a financing platform that's called Mimosa. In the UK, ITV, they are positioning themselves on many topics, among them mental health, and they are through a campaign urging UK citizens to stay in touch with their relatives and loved ones. So this is the first approach, common statement. Okay. The second one is to benefit from the right context. Purposeful brand near to a purposeful content, a purposeful program. And we can be purposeful in fiction, for example, by changing the storylines, changing the setting, changing the way we produce. It's something that is done by ITV in the UK, by RTL in Germany. We can be purposeful in factual, magazine, news, that give tips, concrete tips about how to behave better, and it's done through what we call Green Weeks at M6 in France, RTL in Germany, or RTL in Belgium.
So what I understand is that it's a real collaborative effort. Let's take an inspiring ad break now with creative ads defending a great cause and sharing actions of solidarity. Two formats here that illustrate the new stories brands are writing with their consumers.
This could be a problem.
This could be a problem.
What?
Could be a problem for Lauren James. As their squad grows even stronger, the competition for places heats up.
That's definitely a problem. Could be a problem.
Women beat problems every day. But sexist hate, that's not her problem. It's ours.
See you later. See you later. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind.
We're coming to the end of this presentation, ladies and gentlemen. This is, of course, as I said, just a teaser of the complete study that you can find in the TV Key Facts magazine and online. Once again, with the combination of macro and micro analysis and total video expertise, you are offering new perspectives on the future of advertising. Jean-Baptiste, I want to ask you a last question. What are your key takeaways today?
Well, first of all, as Jan said, keeping advertising in economic turmoil is vital for brands. However, it has to be made efficiently. Fortunately for advertisers, the measurement tools are evolving and they are really helping brands to make every euro count. Second is that reach is a challenge for brands, but it can really be won by cracking the code of complementarity between television and video on demand. And finally, we are in evolving times that induce evolving expectations for consumers toward brands. And we saw that video content is a great shortcut for advertisers to develop storytelling that resonates better with their audience. So all these insights we shared can be adapted to individual needs. You can zoom in even more in this vast content, and the tvkeyfacts.com website and the book will give you way more insights.
I got the book here, of course. Thank you so much, Jean-Baptiste. It was been really, really great, as usual, to exchange with you here on the set today. Thanks again. Let's now head back to our experts one last time to talk about the future of total video. So what will drive the future of total video? Mary, Jens, Stefan has just come back to join me. Welcome back. The question I'm going to ask you all is very, very simple. What will drive the future of total video? Now, when we met Andrea Scrosati a few days ago, we discussed the future of media, and he said that it will be driven by emotional connections. I'm going to turn to maybe Jens, first of all. Would you agree with this?
Well, I'm sure it does. I think that's very clear. But then also, if you talk about the future of total video, I mean, the companies that produce total video are the media houses, and they don't run only ads, they do also produce the content that's before and after the ads. And part of that is entertainment, where emotions play a big role, and part of that is journalism. That's more my area of expertise, and I'm very sure, if you ask me about the future, that the gatekeeping role of journalism, the traditional role of translating the complexities of the world to people who need to understand them and to need to understand their choices and their scarcity challenges, that role will be more important in the future and will actually rise in importance, because our world just gets complexer and complexer all the time.
I agree. Mary, over to you. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I totally agree too. You know, when I think about the future, I think it's kind of difficult to look and to see what will happen. I mean, if we look at the new trends, at the metaverse, for example, maybe the channel I'm working for, NTV, will also be part of it in the future. We don't know if we will publish some news there. But what I can tell you definitely is that especially in some crisis, and we saw it during the corona pandemic, during also the Ukraine war now, that people go back, let's say, to the basics, to their basic media, the media they trust in. And we are definitely one of this. TV channels are one of these. So I'm really proud to work there. And I think we appreciate these, you know, that people trust us so much. It's a responsibility, a big one, and it's a big responsibility for all journalism people in the world also. But we take care of it every day. We start discussions in our conference every morning, like what is the most important topic of the day? What can we do to show the people how important it is? How can we explain it and things like that? And I think, yeah, we definitely really happy that we know that the trust level is so high. And this shows, from my point of view, also the power of the news. And I think it's really important to realize it.
Thank you very much, Mary. Now, as a conclusion, Stefan, I'm coming to you. How do you see the future of Total Media?
Well, first of all, I've been very much inspired today from what I've heard from all the speakers and the contribution of JB. I started the introduction at the beginning of the show on a, I would say, relatively positive note. I guess after 1 hour, I'm fully convinced. That was my wake-up call, I guess. And in this new era, I think advertising, and in particular, TV advertising, has never been sexier. So this could sound a little bit controversial, considering the environment at the moment. But if you stay with me here, just 2 minutes, we saw with JB that there was a constant rise of video consumption, in particular streaming, but we are moving from pay to free. We are moving from subscription VOD to advertising-funded VOD. We touch base very slightly, but small and medium enterprises are taking advantage of the addressable TV capabilities, lowering the entry point to TV. That's really important. And last thing, even the retail industry is really pushing into being a media, retail media. So it's fair to say that, you know, everyone at the moment wants to take a piece of the advertising pie. So you could see it on one hand as being a little bit of a challenge for legacy broadcasters or producers like us, but it also shows the way and what is the potential ahead. So the future of TV or total video for me is basically providing premium video content to audiences at scale or hyper-targeted to bring high level of attention and also to bring engaging services to brands. There's another aspect, which is a huge need for more simplification in our world. So many players, so you need to have guiding lights. And last but not least, it's about brand safety and brand safe content, which is why I must say I'm very excited to be part of this journey, entering this new era. And I'm very excited that RTL Ad Alliance has been formed in order to, give a guiding light to this.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank
Great
you.
Conclusion here. Thank you, of course, to Jean-Baptiste Modiot and, of course, to our guests. I'm going to thank Mary, Jens and Ian Finally, thank you to the RTL Ad Alliance teams that work so hard, and of course to the M6 teams here at the studio for supporting us. I'd like to also thank the technical teams in Cologne that have been with us today, and C Productions for your expertise. This is now the end of the 29th TV Key Facts edition. You can find the complete study and much more content in the magazine that I have just here. You'll be receiving it shortly, and also all the info is available on the TV Key Facts platform. Thank you so much for watching, for being with us. From me, it's goodbye. See you soon and take care.